All right, I'm going to call it. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Proven Paths to Scaling your Pool Service business. We've got a great panel for you here today. My name is Niki Acosta. I'm a director of marketing at Skimmer, and we've got a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right into it. Very quickly, if you are not using Skimmer, we are the #1 pool service software platform in America. We've got now over 27,000 users servicing well over 700,000 pools all across the United States, and we are here to help you build a better business. We do that with software and a platform that's continuously improving. We do that through a community, which we'll talk about later, and we do that through providing you with content like this to really help you grow your business. So thank you to everyone who took the time to be here today. If you're watching the recording, hello to you too. And we're going to introduce our panelists here. So real quick, the Q&A is at the bottom of your screen, or you should be able to hover and pull up the Q&A. If you would like to ask a question during the presentation, go ahead and ask it there, and we will tackle those at the end of the presentation. If you have any other questions for the host or the panelists and you need to leverage the chat, I think you can message host and panelists if it's not a question directed at our panelists. Today, we are going to talk about scaling your pool service business, whether you are a single poler that's trying to get out of the field and get into a position where you are hiring, or if you're servicing 150 pools and want to go to 300 or 500, this is the webinar for you. So we got a couple topics here that we're going to talk about, including attracting, hiring, and retaining top talent. We're going to talk about acquiring and expanding within your customer base, metrics and processes to help you run your business better, a little bit about technology, including tools that don't include Skimmer, and then we'll close it out with overcoming setbacks and a future outlook question directed at our panelists. And if we have time, we'll get to a Q&A. So let's get right into it. Thank you, Thomas, Chantel, and Kyle for being here today. We tried to get a good subset of people across the United States to give different perspectives, and I'm really excited to have all three of you on. I know it was a lot of work to be here, so thank you for doing that. Thomas is serving Florida, Chantel is out in the Phoenix area in Arizona, and Kyle has got a pretty sweet location in Sacramento and likes to escape to Tahoe from time to time, I hear. So I'm going to give you each a couple minutes to talk about your companies, and we will start with you, Thomas. Tell us about yourself and 365 Pools.
Okay, my name's Tommy Diaz. Everybody calls me Tommy in the pool business. We've been in business since 2011. We just bootstrapped it. So I had a Scion, one of those toaster cars, and I made a homemade boat trailer and just started with 5 pools. And through grit and determination, built the company where we've got about 300 accounts. We do a lot of commercial work as well as residential. We're in Florida, so it never ends. We don't have any seasons. We're up to 14 employees. We have a shop. We have 8 vehicles. We're doing great. Just trying to move forward in this heat. We never get a break. So we've been in business, 12 years now, and it's going great. So that's what we do.
All right, thank you for that. Chantel, you're up. Chantel?
Oh, I got you. Hi, I'm Chantel. I'm with Dazzle Pools out here in Fountain Hills, Arizona. We were founded back in 1998. So I've been doing pools since I had a mouthful of braces and had to run home and do homework and study for finals. We joined Skimmer back in 2022, and it has completely transformed the way that we run and operate our business. We hover right around between about 420 to 500 accounts. In the summer, it's always more. We have a pretty big snowbird population out here, so a lot of people leave for the summer months. We started very similar to Tommy's story. We started with a route of 20, and it has just grown and evolved from there. We have chosen to grow slow and steady rather than doing, massive growth spurts. But if you The other area that we try to focus on when we're looking at growth is to grow the services that we provide to our current customers, not necessarily increasing in the number of customers that we service. We're currently running around 14 staff members. There's two of us that kind of are in office. I'm mostly in office. We have one other person who is half in office, half out in the field. We run 10 service techs out in the field for the routes. And then we have two gentlemen that all they do is what we call hotshot repairs. So they're servicing, addressing customer concerns and challenges, meeting new customers, and doing the repairs and diagnosing. And it's great to be here. Thank you, Nikki.
Yep, you're welcome. And Kyle.
Hi, yeah, my name is Kyle. I'm in the Sacramento area. Live in the foothills, kind of between Sacramento and South Lake Tahoe. Moved up here about 7 years ago, got married, bought a house, had a pool, and I wanted to work for myself at that point. And I was brainstorming ideas, fell in love with maintaining this pool I just ended up with, and learned the ropes. I went and worked for another pool company. And the first day I said, hey, I want to learn this business. I'll give you a year. You'll have a great pool cleaner for a year, but my goal is to move on. I learned a lot from working there, and I learned a lot of what not to do from working there. And I bought a Tacoma. I had $5,000 in a business bank account, sent out a postcard, and got 12 customers. And I serviced those customers on Fridays, all while maintaining my full-time job. I wanted to get the boat closer to the dock before I made the leap. From there, I've just put a lot of effort and focus into scaling and growing and building systems. And that's probably why Nikki invited me here today. And I like to talk about it.
Yes, and an impressive number of service locations. We did a case study with you just over a year ago, and you were at 550, and it's just been amazing to see your growth. So thank you for being here. All right, are y'all ready to talk about attracting, hiring, retaining top talent? Let's do this. All right, I'm gonna start with this question. What strategies have you found most effective in hiring new team members? What are the key qualities you look for when hiring new team members? And Thomas, we'll start with you.
So I feel like this is probably one of the biggest topics in the industry, right? We tend to have a high turnover. We're really looking for employees that are experienced guys we can just sort of drop into our routes. And of course, there's a guy running a blower right back at my door. I apologize. He should be gone in a second. Like I was saying, I think this is one of the biggest conversations that we have as pool professionals, as folks that own companies and that kind of thing. And I don't really think there's a silver bullet. I've tried a lot of different things over the years. I have a corporate background, so I've done a lot of, trying to do the Zoom type interviews. And what I found what really works the best is face to face. So I schedule that interview. There's that interaction. Like, is the communication there, right? If someone can't make it to the shop for an interview, most likely, they're going to have time management issues, or maybe they just don't want to put in that kind of effort. So I've really found that moving away from, the Zoom or the video type or even the telephone conference, it takes a lot more time. I can tell you that. It takes a lot more investment on my part. But just having that face-to-face conversation has really helped me to kind of select the folks that are going to be a right fit for our organization, depending on whatever position is open. And then I just look for, positivity. I interviewed a guy today, and everything on his resume, he left the company because of the people, and when I start hearing, well, I didn't like this, or I don't like that, negativity is huge, right? It's just like a cancer in your company. And so I really look for the positivity. I really look for team sports, whether it's a guy or a gal. Team sports, you had to be there for your team. You had to be on time, depending on what level they were at. It could have been a serious amount of commitment. And they already kind of have that ingrained, team ideology as part of their, mindset. So yeah, there's no silver bullet. Hire slow, fire fast. That's kind of the way we work. And integrity. One of the biggest question, or the most important question that I asked in my interview, is what does integrity mean to you? And you would be surprised how many people don't know the answer to that question. And honestly, if they don't know the answer to that question, there's probably an issue. You probably, in my opinion, I don't hire them. If you don't know the answer, if you don't know what integrity is, that means you were never taught what integrity is, and it's going to be a problem because these guys manage themselves. I could keep talking forever. So that's kind of the way I do things face to face. That's what I've found is really the most beneficial for us, and we've been successful with it.
What about you, Chantel?
So very similar to what Tommy has to say, integrity is huge and the face-to-face is huge. To add in another element, we do a trial period. So it's like, hey, what, no pressure, no ifs, ands, or buts. Why don't you come right along with us for a day and see how you like it? This job's not for everybody. And while it's not a hard job, it is very physical. It's very different from anything that's out there in the industry. But to those of you that are looking to hire somebody, positivity is huge, great attitude is huge. And then also the other thing is my dad always told me is if you wouldn't want to sit down and have a beer with them, they're probably not going to be a good fit for you, the way that you run your company. Not saying that they have to be your best friend, but just you have to be able to get along with them. You have to feel comfortable enough to coach them when things need to be improved, and they have to be receptive to taking constructive feedback and coaching. Also, pick who they ride with on that first day on just a ride along, and ask the trainer, hey, are they the first ones out of the truck? Are they the first ones in the truck? Are they the first ones to the backyard? Are they, standing in the road talking to their girlfriend, wife, mama, whatever? Are they enjoying the job? And also the other thing is, and this is a little bit different, but you have to make sure that you are setting expectations for what the job is. The number of times that you sit on an interview and people always want to, oh, I want to move up. I don't want to have to push a pole. I want to come around and learn the repair field. Be very transparent that this job is to push a pole, if that's what this job is, and once you've, proven that you can do that really, really well, then yeah, there's room for growth in the future, but this job is exactly what it is. So you're not hiring them for what's in the future right now. You're hiring them for what you need them to fill in this moment, in this day. And keep in mind that you're hiring a team. You're bringing people on, you're going to pay them for a job well done, but you also expect the job to be very well done, because if they're not doing the job and you have to go out and fix everything, then you're just running in circles and costing yourself money and, probably making a lot of customers really angry.
Great responses. I'm going to direct this one, I think, to Kyle first. How do you ensure that your employees stay motivated and committed to the company long term?
That's definitely a challenge. And like Chantel said, hey, this job's to push a pole, where you don't know if someone's just looking for a burner job, a seasonal job. Our approach is, obviously in-person interviews, and you can tell right away if they're a good communicator, they have their act together, show up to the interview, they're going to potentially work out. But you have that challenge of hiring someone overqualified, which we've done plenty of times in our area. A lot of tree trimming. It's big business out here with our forest fires, and guys will get laid off from that, come clean pools for 3 months, which is about the time when they actually learn to know what they're doing, and then they leave for another $10, $20 an hour, and sometimes take other employees with. So you really need to set clear expectations and have certain goals for your techs where you can make more money when you come here. One reason I love to grow and scale the pool business is because you create job opportunities within the company for really sharp pool techs to either go into repairs eventually, or management, office, all kinds of opportunities. And of course, those don't come right away. But if someone got the little carrot, they could potentially stay. I hired someone overqualified 3 years ago. I knew I needed a general manager at some point. At that point, it was just a service manager, but I built into this gentleman's offer letter different tiers. You hit these certain goals by this date, you make this much more money, and so on and so forth. I also use that as an opportunity to bring in benefits to the company. 401k with matching, healthcare with the company paying half, so on and so forth. And he's now our general manager and running our business to allow me to focus on developing and growing the business. And you can do that with the pool cleaner. Just set up these tiers that they want to hit and have a great company culture. Keep it fun, keep it lively. Monday morning meetings should be pep rallies. I've had some managers where they're yelling at the techs, oh, the pools are green, and customers are complaining and you crash the truck and all the nightmares, right? You got to have the pep rallies because the job is hard. Absolutely. And people don't respect the job because they don't know what the job entails. So have those pep rallies, give the guys carrots. And when you don't use the stick for feedback, flip it, right? So if someone's not doing a good job, you don't want your A players to get bummed out because they're having to pick up the slack for the C players. What you need to do is promote and give incentive to those A players.
Great. Next question. How do you staff your teams to ensure you have room to grow while maintaining profitability? Chantel, you take this one.
Yeah, so it's really keeping your finger on the pulse. When you're hiring someone, you have to hire them and make sure that you have enough room to keep them busy and to keep them fed, right? Because if you're just bringing someone on and you throw them a handful of pools to go do and, oh, I don't have any work for you today, then you're not going to be able to retain them because they've got bills to pay, they've got a family to feed. But you should also always be looking for ways that you can also divide and conquer. So knowing your technicians, knowing who you're hiring, what their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. So that way you can start balancing and right sizing your team accordingly. If you have a tech that is awesome at, cleaning filters, they're terrible at DE filters, but they're awesome at cartridge filters, then don't send them any more DE filters. And, look at who else on your team you have to right size to fill that gap. You can always and forever leverage the time and talent and expertise of who you are already bringing on to your team before you start looking at outside resources.
Kyle, I'm going to direct this one at you too.
Yeah, so I kind of see this question for me in bigger picture of how do you make sure you're making a profit, because that's what we're trying to do here, make a living while growing, which takes money, which comes from the bottom line, the profit. I follow a cash flow principle out of a book called Profit First. Write that one down if you're struggling with cash flow issues. It's a great book. It really changed the way I see my finances. Your P&L sheet can trick you. Those numbers can look a lot better. They don't always match up with what's in your bank account. In a nutshell, I have 4 or 5 different bank accounts, and one of them is an income account. All money goes in there, and once every 2 weeks, we divvy up that money into a profit account, a reinvest account, an operating expense account, a tax account. And that really gives me a visibility of where my cash is. And that reinvestment account is the extra money to buy trucks, bring on staff early. The second thing we do is we build into our labor rate the fact that we're going to have what we call an N+1. And it's actually, the formula's changed. It's gotten more complicated. But essentially, N is the amount of techs you need to do your routes. You always need a +1. And as you grow, that becomes a +2 and a 3. And you need to build their labor costs into the labor costs you're charging on your current customers. So that might be another, $10 an hour or something. It all depends on your how many customers you have. But you need to think of those two things to grow and maintain profitability.
And Tommy, I see you shaking your head, nodding yes. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, you guys sound like business owners. So definitely everything you're saying, I would echo. We have found success, and it took me a minute to kind of figure it out because of where I came from in corporate America, because it's just a different business model. It's a little bit different. So carrying that +1, we've kind of been able to create that conveyor belt where we're carrying +1, +2, and then setting a clear expectation about, hey, when you come in as a trainee, it's X amount of dollars, and then you're able to move up through the ranks so that they have that growth plan, so this doesn't feel like a dead end job. And at our company, we're not pool guys, we're pool technicians. So we don't just get bugs out of pools. This is an actual trade, this is an actual career path, and this is your path and how you can do it. But I'm really happy to hear some of the things you guys just said, because some of the things that I'm doing, and now I'm like, okay, because this industry can be very competitive, and you don't always are able to communicate these things with everybody, and you don't have a sounding board as the owner. So definitely we're doing the same thing with the plus one. To everybody who's listening, I know you're thinking right now how much that's going to cost you. It's going to cost you if you don't do it. I guarantee you. It's going to cost you more to not carry that plus one, two, three, or whatever it is, based on how many pools you have, than to just go ahead and do it and create. I call it a conveyor belt, that training conveyor belt. So you pull in a guy that's completely green, right? Doesn't know anything. He starts training, he starts riding along. Then he gets to the point to where, okay, he can do, maybe 5 pools, and then you do a little measurement to see if they went well. And so you create a program where that person can go ahead and climb out of there right into that pool technician slot. Then they go commercial, then they go repairs, and so on and so forth. So definitely great formula there for sure. That's what we're doing as well.
Thanks for the answers to that. Well positioned for sure. Let's talk about customer acquisition. And this is always an exciting one. I wanted to spend a little bit more time here because this seems to be one where I think a lot of companies struggle a bit. And it sounds like some of you have this really figured out. What methods have you implemented to attract and win new business? And we'll get some brief responses from Thomas and Chantel, and then we've got a couple slides for Kyle that we wanted to walk through.
So honestly, I'm in Florida, so swimming pools are like front lawns. There is no one that does not have one. So I have to say we haven't really struggled in that area. We have a waiting list right now of about 35 people. I would say that I'm following sort of an 80-20 conversion model. So if I'm converting 100% of my customers, then my prices are too low, right? So as far as well, to give you an example, like there's a neighborhood, 480 houses, 392 of them have swimming pools. So hyper competitive. But I will say what has been most effective for us in going for more than just the residential cleaning side, and when we're looking at these higher number, price points on repairs and whatnot, would be like tabletop expos. And it doesn't have to be like the expensive trade shows. I'm talking about your local chamber of commerce. I'm talking about your local property management group. Your realtors are always throwing a little something or other, right? Where you put a little tabletop. The breweries are always doing something. So that we have found super success doing that. I come back with just more leads than I can follow up on, feels like sometimes. And especially for those higher price points, it won't necessarily be for pool cleaning. You get into a lot of commercial kind of arenas where they do tabletops, and that has really sent sales through the roof. Particularly me being the owner, being at that tabletop and being able to um, facilitate the deal or the communication or whatever needs to happen. So that's been big time for us, trade shows and tabletops.
What about you, Chantel?
Yes, so I have a little bit different. So there's 2 ways that you can attract and win new business. One, you can grow your number of pools that you're servicing. 2, you can increase the profit at each pool you already have. So in order, if you want to grow your number of customers, the way that we did it was old-fashioned shoe leather. We found a new subdivision with a new houses that were being built, and being in Arizona, they're putting in pools. So we literally took 2 months of walking door knockers and putting them on the front doors of people's houses. Hey, we're pool service. We're here. We're in your area. And within 2 months, that gave us 30 pools. Yes, it takes a lot longer, but we only did it after we were already done with our route. The second is branding and brand awareness. If you don't have your truck wrapped, then get magnet signs with your logo on it and your phone number. That's all you need, just your logo and your phone number, and make sure they're on your truck at all times. You are your own best salesperson. your truck's parked out in front of that house. Neighbors are walking by, neighbors are looking through the window. They say, oh, they're in my neighborhood. You service my neighbor's pool, come service my pool. Give me a quote. The other thing is your customers are your greatest advocate. So message boards like Nextdoor, Facebook groups, people are on those and people post questions. I'm tired of my pool service. How can I, grow, or how can I get a new quote? Oh, my pool guy's great. Give him a call. And then thank that customer, whether it be 2 weeks of free service or a discounted rate for that customer referral, whatever works best for you.
I've heard filter cleans have been popular, like refer someone and we'll give you a free filter clean. That's been a popular one lately. I want to spend a little bit more time with you, Kyle, here because you have this pretty well sorted. I will say, in looking at your website, you are a review generating machine, and it's always good to look at a website and see that your latest review was 3 days ago, but you've also got this great little chat that pops up on your website too. And so I wanted to kind of ask you about your customer acquisition as it relates to marketing and having social proof, and talking about the technology also and the ads that you run.
Yeah, so I mean, this could be a whole seminar in and of itself, which maybe it will be. But some broad stroke things are, Google's a giant beast. It has a lot of eyeballs. You pay for those eyeballs, and it's worth it, in my opinion. But you need to commit. You can't just put your toe in the water, because the Google ads work as auctions. And so if you are not willing to be the highest bidder, which all happens behind the scenes, you're going to just be wasting money and making the people that are willing to win pay more. And the only one that wins there is Google. And so it's also always changing. It's very complex. They change their algorithms. And so I highly recommend hiring an agency. The one we work with charges $550 a month. And then you pay it for your ad spend, and they work with your budget. So you're not wasting your budget. I'll see people come in the top 3, ads when I Google pool service near me. They come and they're gone, and they probably just blew all their money if they're not using an agency. You don't want to be running ads in the wrong areas. I don't know how many times you guys scroll on Instagram and see people's ads for pool service, 500,000 miles away. So the agency is key there. Google has their ads, so you buy keywords, and then they also have, which is new to our market, Google local services, so Google guarantee. So if any of you guys go onto Google right now and say plumber near me, you're going to have these green little check marks, right? And those are going to be people that are vetted by Google. You have to be authorized, show your licensure, and also the social proof, like Niki mentioned. When that came out a couple years ago, we hired a service which requested reviews after every job. I know people are scared to do that because we all have a bad tech or a mistake, or there's always issues. But people are a lot more inclined to give you a 5-star review and say how great you are than to rip you apart on social media or Google. So we've done that. It says 180, and frequency is also very important. You can hire one of these companies, get it loaded up, but if you don't have reviews within the past couple months, Google discredits some of that. So with the Google local services, we get probably 5 or 10 calls a day. And then from there, we have a whole system, which maybe I'll talk about in the technology piece, a whole flow of how we get them scheduled, vetted, into Skimmer, serviced, like the service estimate, and then the follow-up and the closure. And then when they're closed, then they're getting that request again to give a review. And that's for repairs, installations, as well as service.
Talk to us about that chat box at the bottom of your website. What happens when somebody chats there?
Yeah, so that essentially, the way these work, there's different ones, and we're actually in a transition of getting a new website and revamping a lot of this, because I see the value in this machine, right? This marketing machine. Essentially, that relates to us in our virtual text, which is a whole piece of software, just like email. So we can be emailing them back and forth, and they're seeing it as web chat, or if we're not there immediately, it's then chats to them on their cell phone. And people love that. Texts are a pain in the butt if you're doing it on your cell phone to keep track of them. But once you have a little piece of software that, again, costs maybe $100, $200 a month, very inexpensive to reach all those people. A lot of people aren't on email. A lot of people aren't making phone calls. The younger generation who's now starting to buy homes with pools, making ridiculous money out here, moving up from San Francisco, where they work for social media companies and tech companies. They want to chat or they want to text. and it's very cool. And the new stuff coming with our new system we're moving towards, it's going to have some AI influence, almost like a frequently asked questions, and just helping vet the volume and funnel and vet down for us to spend our time more wisely.
Which makes sense, because if you're getting the same question every single time and you have an automated way to respond to that, then you're cutting down the amount of work you have to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so most of the questions are, hey, how much would you charge for my, pool? Well, that for here, I mean, we have pools that are 10,000 gallons and 30,000 gallons and everything in between. We have big tree pools, no tree pools. And so we need to do an in-person quote. And we feel like it's very important because we're selling on our value, right? The value we bring, our expertise. We're not selling on price. We're not a commodity as many pool service companies or single poolers. They're just selling on price. They have the same full service price for a 30,000 gallon pool and a 10,000 gallon pool. So you need to get into the details. And we do that by basically saying, hey, here's a link. They can call a phone number, press 1, and they get a Ruby answering service, uses the Calendly link, which is, I'm sure a lot of you guys have used that to book things for yourself. They then have our schedules pulled into there, and they can schedule. So I wake up in the morning and I have my day planned for me of all the service quotes I'm going to go out and do. And that way there's none of this back and forth. Like, have any of you guys ever tried to buy something on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist? And there's like this back and forth forever before you find a place and a price and all that. This is just like one text and the work's done for us.
Talk to us a little bit about the ads that you're running too, and your profile here on Google.
Yeah, so on the left is what we would call like one of the top 3 the Google ad keywords. And that's all done by the agency. They got a picture of our tech Justin there giving a thumbs up. They have all the data and they know that picture does well. It's not a picture I would pick, but they know that our customers are liking that. And then they also have a portal that shows us all the clicks and the calls, and calls are recorded. So we can actually, vet the marketing and what kind of calls we're getting. Are we getting a bunch of calls for above ground pools, which we don't touch? And then that coupled with on the right is the Google My Business profile, or that's maybe the old name of Business Manager. Again, Google changes a lot, so the agency is key. And that's where all your reviews are collated. That's where you have your hours. You guys all know this from the Google Maps. And that's location dependent, so that's super important. Even if you don't have a physical store where customers can come, you can set this up as a service area business and get your service area out there. Now, these two things coupled together is the Google local services, the Google guarantee, which I'm finding is super powerful. And if your competitors aren't on it yet and you're first to adopt it, Google will reward you for that. And I just see this, it's a money machine. It's how much money do you want to put in? Because you're going to get more out. I rough numbers, and I know it's different across the whole country, but I like to think a customer acquisition for a long-term pool service customer is potentially $1,000. Like if you bought a customer for like $100 a month customer for 10 times the monthly revenue, it's $1,000. So in marketing, if I could spend $6,000 a month on this whole machine here, and it spits out 6 customers, it's a break even. And those customers have chosen us. We haven't chosen them. And of course, the numbers are way higher than that.
So talk to us, y'all, about your pricing models, speaking of services, because I see a lot of variability and it seems to be very, very different depending on where you live in the country. Do you include chems? Do you charge separately for chems? And why did you choose this model? And Tommy, we'll start with you.
So Florida, for whatever reason, has the lowest price points in the nation. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. Probably because it's highly competitive. We are not doing a plus chem model. However, we are moving towards it just because of the way the market is and the way that the economy is. And we really do need to start getting that profitability up to where, or getting it up higher. We have really struggled to get our price point up to where it needs to be. I feel like we are charging, billing one of the highest price points in the area. And what I would say is that you never want to base your price point on what somebody else is charging. Don't do that. What you need to do is base your price point on the value that you bring to the pool deck. And, there's a couple different segments to that would be, how you manage the swimming pool and its equipment, but also too, how are your communications, right? I have found that in my area, in this business segment, we have been able to really deploy technology and kind of the people that I've hired in their background that we understand customer centricity, right? And so if you are able to have that, what we call like one call resolution, right? That customer calls one time, they get a resolution. They send an email, they get a response. We're, deploying these different technologies in order to be able to respond to customers quickly and resolve the issue. That is what people want. When you're able to, bring in these technologies like Skimmer and then also just regular, know-how and how to deal with customers, you're able to just, these customers really start interacting in a way that your company feels like a big company, right? But what we run into a lot in the industry is where we aren't responding to the customer. The customer already has that contractor PTSD. So you really need to show, hey, my price point is this much higher, but at the same time, here's the value that I'm bringing to the table because everybody, not everybody, but we hear a lot here in my area, hey, I'm paying $80 a month. You're double that, right? So you really need to be able to understand and be ready for that question with and overcome the obstacle and condition as to what value do you bring to the table. And I would say if you're just getting started out and you're hearing all these things and it's, gosh, these guys have everything and they're so big and technology and really you need to learn the fundamentals of the sales process, right? What's the difference? What's the difference between a prospect and a lead? What's the difference between an obstacle and a condition, right? You need to learn to sell. You need to start buying books about sales and how it works. We talk a lot about marketing, right? Well, marketing is sales. Revenue is number one. And you need to get to the point where you have a minimum viable product. Don't try to figure it all out at once, right? Once you have that minimum viable product, then you can kind of start getting into these more complicated marketing strategies, right? But I think the biggest issues that we are selling based on what the other guy is charging. Do not do that. It is better to have less work for the same amount of money, if that makes sense. So, you can have 100 pools at $100, or you could have 90 pools at $110. It's the same work. So that's what you're striving for. One thing that I always say is we use the Disney World model, right? In that 80-20 conversion I talked about, you keep raising your price until people don't want to pay it. And you need to be confident in what you're doing and the value that you're bringing to that customer, right? And it's not just getting pools out, not just getting bugs out of the pool. And at the same time, you have a responsibility to self-educate, join groups, and learn this industry like it's a trade. If you're just showing up, your truck isn't wrapped, you don't have a magnet, you got no shirt, no shoes, and a straw hat, and you want them to believe that, you're this upper, price point, that's not going to work. So you really need to learn about perceived value and what that means, right? So I think those are some of the really important things when it comes to pricing is like we don't understand sales and we don't understand how do we come to that price point and what the philosophy is behind it. So train yourself in sales. That would be my advice.
Thank you for that. That was a great response. I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit here and get to metrics and processes for profitability, just to be mindful of time here, because I think this is another really great section where all of you can provide a lot of value. And so I want to direct this one at Kyle first. What types of leading indicators do you measure to ensure you are on the right track to hitting your revenue target?
Oh boy, I'm a nerd, so I'm into the spreadsheets. Skimmer allows you to record all of your readings and your dosages. If you don't have that set up with your true costs, you're really missing out on visibility of how your business is doing. So that's step number one. Whether you pay your guys hourly or you pay them per pool, or however it works in your state, bonus commission. And my headset's a couple years old and it just said it's running out. So someone give me a sign if you can't hear me anymore. It's probably been dunked in a pool once or twice. You guys know how that that could go. However you do that, you should also assign your average cost of labor per stop. So for us, if we think it's a 15-minute stop, that's a quarter of whatever our hourly labor cost is, not what an employee makes. If we're paying a tech $25 an hour to service a pool, our cost is probably more like $50, $60, right? And that covers washing the truck, mistakes happening, trips back to the shop, that N+1 or 2 job. It's our actual cost for that 15 minutes of labor we're billing for. So get all that loaded in a skimmer. And then from there, Skimmer has some profitability reports. And if you're not a nerd, that's plenty for you. But if you want to go to the next level, you can export that information and really do a deep dive on your true costs and what Skimmer's telling you, and essentially understand your gross profit margin per pool, by each customer or by each service tech. And you should have plans for that. And if you're falling below the plan, you need to change your model. You need to reduce your costs. You need to increase your prices, because that's your litmus test. And for us, the way we look at gross profit, it's how much money is left over after we pay our labor and our chemicals or our materials. And for us, we strive for 50%. And then that 50% that's left over, 30 to 40% of it are used in overhead costs. So truck maintenance, office admin staff. And then the goal is to have that 10 to 20% profit. And if you have a 10% profit, expect half of that to be, going back into the company, and a 5% profit. So, and then that's taxed. So if you're using that profit first model, expect 2% of your revenue to actually go into your pocket, set aside another 2% for taxes to be on the safe side and go forward. So you need to understand your cost per pool. And when I go and quote a big boy pool, and I tell them it's, again, the prices are relative, but when I say $300 a month and they say, oh, I have been paying 125, I guarantee single polar, large company, whatever, they're not making money. They're losing money on that pool. They don't know it because they're looking at the average. They're looking at their bank account, or they're looking at their P&L. But if you take the time in the off season and go by customer, you can make some really educated decisions. And like the other panelists are saying, make those hard decisions, which aren't hard decisions, to give price increases.
Chantel, you're nodding your head.
Yes, no, this is a great opportunity if you are not using Skimmer to use it and really look at the nuts and bolts of it. So I'm also a nerd like Kyle, but I'm going to give you a non-nerd answer. So when I was back in the day just starting out, I didn't understand spreadsheets and how to look at profitability and how to calculate percentages. I didn't get it. So the way it was explained to me is anything that costs you money that is not reflected on your customer invoice, right? That would be your subscription fee to Skimmer, the gas, all that other fun stuff that costs you money and able to do this business. When you do your taxes at the end of the year, pull up your tax returns for last year, total up all that stuff that never made it onto the customer invoice, and divide it by the total number of pools you have. That's the average cost that it takes you in order to just get that job done. So super simple, super baseline. It's not going to be, completely down to the penny, but it's a big number. And if you're quoting your jobs and you're estimating your jobs to be at a 30% margin, if you're not taking into account the fact that credit card fees, if you take credit cards, that's 3% right there. And sales tax, if you are paying taxes on equipment, ours is 8%. So just on tax and credit card fees, that's 11%. So all of a sudden that profit margin that I quoted it at 30% is now down to only 19% profit. So you have to be conscientious of where you want to be. If you're just doing this job because you need something to do to get you out of the house, you like being in the sun, you're not trying to make money, you do you, live your best life. But if you're trying to get this, to beyond a single pole, then you've got to take the time, watch some YouTube videos, and actually put a pencil to paper and figure out where do you want to be and how are you going to get there. And to Kyle and Tommy's credit, this is a career field. This is a trade. And, you know, if we don't treat it like one, then we're never going to be compensated as one.
Amen. Yes, absolutely. Everything you just said. Let's skip to this one. And I will, Chantel, ask this one too, because it sounds like all three of you have this pretty well figured out, but what processes have you found to be most successful when it comes to managing and schedule service and repair clients? Like juggling those two, what are you doing with your repair techs when they're not doing repairs?
Okay, what I'm doing with my repair techs when they're not doing repairs is quality control, quality control, quality control. So, like today, I have a tech that he finished up a job that we thought was going to take a lot longer earlier, and he just texted that he's logging into his Skimmer app. We've got 2 new techs that are fresh, you know, flying solo within the last month, and he's writing their route, and he's going to go back and double check and triple check their chemical readings, get on site, make sure that the dosages were correct for the size of the pool, and that, you know, the pool looks clean, that there's nothing left in the bottom, there's nothing in the baskets. So quality control, and the customers love it because they know that we care. We're building our reputation, and we're building that level of trust with our customers.
And you do that through work orders, right? Like you have work orders to go do quality checks to fill their schedules.
I do. We drop quality control checks for the repair tech to go. And then if they need to go back with the technician that serviced the pool, I drop them a work order as well. Everything's documented. Everything's documented all through work orders, all through Skimmer.
And you got the photos to prove it.
And we've got the photos to prove it.
How about you, Kyle?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, like the quality control. Actually, I'm taking notes. I'm learning here too that I like the quality control work order. We have courtesy calls, which is, yeah, maybe we screwed up. We're going to get out there and check it out. We don't get 1-star reviews because a pool went green. We don't get 1-star reviews because a tech didn't empty a skimmer basket. We get 1-star reviews because of our communication. If there's a breakdown or a delay, that's what sets the homeowner off. So again, it kind of goes back to it's the communication is so important, and building that infrastructure before scaling so you can handle the workload. In terms of scheduling, we do every job through Skimmer. We have tons of work orders. Even like our service quote work order, it has like a template of all the things we need to check for and look for and build pricing for. We have heater install work orders, which lists all of the inches of water column needed for the 3 brands of heaters we install. You have all these things, they're SOPs, they're standard operating procedures. They're getting things written down, and you reduce the chance of techs forgetting things. It's checklists on route stops, customize those. Tell the customer, hey, we're going to build you a custom maintenance plan for your pool. And what that means is you have 3 or 4 different checklist items for that pool because they got a quirky waterfall that gets algae. Well, we're going to make that a checklist. And then if you have a substitute tech, they know, oh, I got to brush or treat this waterfall. So really utilize those. Like we have probably 60, 70 different work orders to choose from, and we alphabetize them. That was huge. And they're color coded. So kind of group by the colors and build it out. Off season, we call them winter projects. Build it out and use that to your benefit.
Sound advice. Let's skip ahead a little bit to leveraging technology here, because I want y'all to have an opportunity to talk about some of the other technologies that you've implemented. Kyle, you had some that you had mentioned to me in particular. What technologies have you employed to improve or automate communication and efficiency, either with your employees, your prospects, or your customers?
Yeah, I love technology. I think it was one of the you know, there's this looming recession, right? Which are we in it? Are we, you know, did it come now? It was supposed to come 2 years ago. You know, the advice for small business owners was you can make it, but those that employ or use technology are going to have the most success, whether you're in the service business or whatever. I mean, there's artificial intelligence, all this, but at the end of the day, you need to use the technology to save on labor costs. And I mean, labor costs have been inflated so much, it's hard to keep up. And customers have been seeing the inflation, and it's hard to get the service rate that we need to sustain what we're doing. So we need to employ technology. So for us, someone asked what we use for our direct mail, we hire a service. They do the mailing, they do the design, they have the leads, they have the addresses, right? So that's super important. We used Dope Marketing out of Minnesota for our last one. Did a great job. And so it's techy, right? There's a portal, you send your stuff, it just happens, right? We use a call service to schedule things. We use Calendly, so people are booking their own appointments. We use Google Workforce, so that handles the calendars and all that. Everybody has an iPhone. They're all controlled by Apple Business Manager, which is game changer. If you have more than 3 phones with your staff, get onto Apple Business Manager. It's all free. Once you get over to 20 devices, there may be a charge. And then we use RingCentral for our phones. If you're still on just your iPhone, your personal phone, or even your second work phone, get on a voice over IP system. We use RingCentral. And then moving into, of course, Skimmer. Skimmer is like the next stop in the whole marketing sales process. We've used Broadly in the past to request those reviews for us, Broadly out of Oakland, California. It's maybe a couple $100 a month for that service. We use GoCanvas, which is a really cool way to basically make yourself a little app that then translates into a PDF form. So we use that for all of our service agreements, green cleanup agreements, startup agreements. And then, of course, we use QuickBooks as the backbone to keep track of the actual numbers for what we're doing every month. And then I could go on and on. There's probably a few more things. We use a vault system to capture credit cards. Rather, I should say we're implementing that, because if you go, you got to be careful with where PCI compliance. You can't just say, hey, text that credit card over. You got to make sure you're being PCI compliant with that. I mean, the list goes on, but implementing this technology is super important to scale your business without having to have an office staff that costs you, tens of thousands of dollars a year.
And speaking of phone systems, and we are a little bit pressed for time, but Chantel, you use Open Phone, which is a suggestion from Bryce and Zach in your area. Can you tell us a little bit about your Open Phone process and what it does for you?
Yeah, so Open Phone is a voice over IP system. What it allowed us to do is it allowed us to do 2 lines and 1 cell phone. So this is kind of like a middle of the road. So if you're a single pole guy and you're just looking, you're right at that 100 to 120 number of pulls you're doing each week, and you're wanting to bring on just 1 person, this is a great option for you. So this is kind of a middle of the road, but it allows the customer to know, like, hey, I see you, I hear you, but it's beyond hours. There's got to be a good balance, because you guys are all probably running, 24/7, not sleeping. Christmas Eve, your phones are blowing up because everybody's home for the holidays and wanting to use their hot tub and it won't work. You got to have a good balance, and you got to have, let the customer know you see them, you hear them, but you can triage. That's one feature. But the other one that I also want to bring up too is, for those of you that are running a single pole right now, you don't have to have some fancy, big marketing scheme or some big technological bounce. Use your phone and text a YouTube video. You're in a backyard and the customer's pool vac is terrible and it's like falling apart to pieces. Text the customer a YouTube video of a new vac that you love and say, hey, your vac is toast, time to upgrade, and text them the video of what you want to put in instead. That way you can save yourself time. You don't need to do, put everything down and save it for later. You're right there in the backyard, just send it, done. Also use Skimmer. Skimmer is your friend. Those live photos will save you time and increase the communication with your customer base. Those are the 2 things that we have big for technology for single poles right now.
And you're also using Skimmer billing, Chantel. Can you talk to us about that process? Because you just transitioned early on, I think, and you've been using it for a while now.
Yes, Skimmer billing changed my life, and it has enabled the touch it once method. So in the past, if you're not currently using Skimmer or Skimmer billing, and you're doing, kind of got your toe in a whole bunch of different systems, make sure before you decide what's right for you that you look at what is it going to take on your end to manage it, because technology is a tool, and a tool is only as good as the person who knows how to use it. So if you're just gonna, throw money at it and hope that it works, I hope it works for you, but you also have to understand why you're investing in that tool and how it's going to serve you. Skimmer billing enables us to just literally, it goes from the tech in the field to the customer's invoice in their inbox. I have eyes on it. I push billing once a week for all the work orders and repairs, and then I push at the end of the month for all the weekly route stops. And it is a game changer and a lifesaver.
Thanks for that. A shameless plug question, but I know you've been using it for a while. We're getting close to time, so I wanna skip ahead a little bit and just ask you all each this question. And we'll start with you, Tommy. What advice would you give to those just starting out or those who want to take their business to the next level? Like, what are the most important things?
So I'm just sitting here being reminded of all the things that I did in the beginning, and I would say you just need determination. You need grit. You need determination. Your number one business rule is never, ever, ever give up, ever. And then the next things you need to do is you need to get a website. You need to set up an email at that domain so you're not emailing customers from Gmail. It'll give you that perceived value. And then you need to set up a voice over IP situation like we were talking about with Ring Central or this other service. Because you need to set business hours for yourself. You need to set that standard with your customers, or they're going to destroy you. I get text messages at 10 o'clock at night. If I answer, then I'm training my customer that I'm going to resolve the issue at 10 o'clock at night. And that's just not healthy for anybody. Um, and then you have to measure everything. If you are not measuring your outcomes and you're just in this cash flow circle of hell, you will never have any money. So the easiest place to start is operating costs per pool. That's the easiest place to start. You don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be great. Just that MVP, minimum viable product. So you take that one pool that's 10,000 gallons that you know what you're putting in there, and then use that as a model and start to extrapolate and then get more complicated. Get Skimmer, put your costs in there, and then you start looking at that cost per pool. What we've done at 365 Pools is we have a rubric, it's a spreadsheet, and every pool we take on, there's some costs associated with it. We put it into that spreadsheet and it gives me my price point. It takes the emotion out of it, and I know what I'm charging. So, so those are really the things that I would recommend. They're just the first couple things, right? You're going to set yourself up, perceive value, set up your phone lines, set up your website, start measuring. If you're not measuring, you're in an endless circle of hell and you will go nowhere because you're putting 6 jugs in that pool every single time and you're charging $80 and you don't know why you're tired. So,
Chantel, I'll ask
yeah.
you the same question.
Yeah, everything that Tommy said, and then adding on a couple things. Don't skip on quality service. Reputation is everything. And to what he said earlier about integrity, integrity is huge. So just as you would expect anybody that you hire to have integrity, you owe integrity to your customers and you owe integrity to your employees. Be honest with your team and your customers. You're going to mess up. It's going to happen. But own it. Admit when you were wrong and do the best you can until you know better and then do better. The only thing that is going to be your own, your destruction is yourself. So, and lean into your team. I know they're going to talk a little bit later about the pool deck. I'm a huge fan of know who your team is. When I don't know the answer to a question, if nobody else, has a good answer that I like, then I lean into the people and the networks that I've built. Don't try to do this by yourself, make friends. And even if it's not friends and that are pool professionals in the area that you serve, I mean, lean into the Skimmer community. It's a whole bunch of really great people and we're all trying to do the same thing. So listen and learn and always be willing to grow.
And finally, Kyle.
This is what I did. I would build up your routes with all the great things you've learned here from the other panelists and things you are already doing, hopefully. Build up that route till you're at your limit and you're working 10, 12-hour days. You're making good money, set that money aside. When that extra money gets to a point where you can hire someone, get another truck, that's when you hire and you repeat that process. And then you'll start, it multiplies, right? Like little bunny rabbits, and it happens fast.
Thank you so much, Tommy, Chantel, Kyle. I know we went over. If you would like to participate in some Q&A, I'm going to invite you all to the pool deck. All of our panelists are on the pool deck. We'll share some of the tools that each of them have discussed. We'll have the recording there. We'll have the slides there, but it's free to join whether you are a Skimmer customer or not. You'll find all kinds of great forums, everything from buying and selling routes, business growth topics, events, and some good Skimmer stuff too. You can learn from other users or find creative workarounds for some issues that you might have. So we're inviting you all to the pool deck to continue the conversation. Thank you all for being here. Thank you again to our panelists who put so much time and effort to be here today. And we hope to see you at the next one. Everybody say bye.